Welcome to Scoop World Order, your number one source for Ohio State football. Inside information is the week we've been waiting for. Penn State is coming to town at the huge home game on the schedule, on a very light home schedule this year. And we're really excited to break down what these matchups are going to look like. This is a game that I think a lot of people have had circled. A lot of people like to come to town for one game a year, and this is really the only big game on the schedule. So I think this is going to be a rocking experience. Noon kickoff. I know a lot of people hate it. I love it. I think it's going to be fantastic. A lot of recruits coming in from South Florida. Penn State has some ballers on their team. Left tackle's a top 10 pick, big time defensive end. We're going to break that down. Drew Aller returns to Ohio, to a school that frankly wanted him, and he ended up turning him down and going to Penn State. So we're going to get into all of that and more. But first, as always, we're very thankful and grateful for you guys joining us again. We appreciate all the growth on this channel. It's all thanks to you guys spreading the good word on BuckeyesScoop.com. We appreciate all of your likes, your comments. Comment who needs to step up this week. We've had a laundry list of candidates. Dallin Hayden was obviously a key guy last week. But who needs to step up this week? Put that down in the comments. Leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. You get an alert every time we go live. That being said, I'm going to bring in my friend who is always live, Mr. Nevada Buck. Nevada, how are you today?
Doing great, man. This is an exciting week. Like you said, Penn State week. You don't get, games like this every time. And this certainly is the biggest home game of the year on the 2023 home schedule. So it's going to be live. You're going to be there sipping hot cocoa in the suite with everybody else on a sleepy Saturday morning. But I think the Buckeye faithful will bring it, and it's going to be a great show, man. Can't wait for it.
You've had a good read. I mean, Penn State, you literally were 7 points away from nailing the score right on the nose. What's your early read? Obviously, things can change throughout the week as we get development on Emeka's status. Travion looks like he's going to be a go. I can't imagine Chip's going to play. But as we get more clarification on what the roster is going to look like, the game day roster, how are you feeling about this game? How do you see it playing out as of Monday? And obviously, this can change by Friday.
Well, I'm going to tell you what Penn State's going to try to do. Penn State's going to try to use Abdul Carter like Micah Parsons. That's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to bring him inside. They're going to try to bring him on defensive tackle. They're going to try to bring him at defensive end. They're going to try to Micah Parsons. That's the secret that when they were talking about that they thought that they had something on defense is they think they can use his speed to create matchup nightmares for Ohio State on the offensive line, especially on the interior offensive line, get them off the edge against those tackles. And that's what Penn State's secret weapon is going to be. They're going to try to turn it into the Abdul Carter show. And so for Ohio State, as I know you listen to these podcasts, got to count for Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter's going to be lining up all over the field. That's what they're going to try to do. And, you look at Penn State's defensive numbers, you look at their offensive numbers. First of all, their defensive numbers are obscene. Number one in the country, I think, in total and in scoring. But then when you get a little deeper and you look at who they've played, and it's bad. I mean, it's a really bad schedule. So, I mean, as good as their defense is, and their defense has got some players, it's certainly it'd be like if we played Penn State 6 weeks in a row. That's kind of the results that you'd get. And I think that's kind of what Penn State's leaning on right now. And I like the matchup for Ohio State. Penn State does not have elite wide receivers. Their receivers, in my opinion, are like a notch below Notre Dame's. And I think that's kind of going to be problematic for him. I think for Aller, he hasn't been pushing the ball down the field. I think the game's going to kind of get condensed. I think the guys are not going to be able to get separation on our defensive backs. And it's going to turn into a slugfest in the box. And I think, in a big game like that, Aller's never really played a difficult road game. And this is going to be as difficult as it gets. It's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. The place is going to be going nuts. I think it's going to be a slug 'em out, low scoring affair. And as I sit here on Monday, I think I've got Ohio State like 24-14. I think it's going to be a low scoring game that Ohio State is going to win. It's going to cover, and I'm certainly betting it that way.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money. This is going to be a real test. I think that The weaknesses of Penn State are their interior offensive line is not good. I mean, they have an all-world left tackle, Olu Fashal, who I literally I circled here. I mean, he's the guy, but you delete him from that O line, and it's one of the worst in the Big Ten, in my opinion. I think that they're in for a rude awakening when they see Tyleek and Mike Hall. Tyleek has arguably been our best player on defense. He's been absolutely outstanding, and I think that the interior pressure is going to be something Drew Eller's going to have to deal with. I think that they've got good tailbacks. They're both back. Chop Robinson's going to be an issue. Whoever sees him, very good pass rusher. You mentioned Abdul Carter. I think there's some guys. Their front's good. I mean, their front's is going to be Michigan level. They got some big time guys, but that's what Penn State always is. I mean, Penn State for the last 30 years has been like they're driven by their front seven on defense, and their front sevens are always the best that we played in the Big Ten. They've had first round picks ad nauseum. Going back to even, you get back to the 2000 draft, Courtney Brown and LeVar Arrington. Thankfully, those guys aren't playing on Saturday, so it doesn't matter. But even when I was there, they had Tom Bahali, Maurice Evans, Jimmy Kennedy was a first round pick. I mean, they just had just a ton of guys that were big, talented, strong, well-coached guys. Those are all Larry Johnson's guys, but these guys, they remind me of Larry Johnson front. We watched some film on them. We're going to get into a little bit more of the scheme stuff that we saw in that Purdue game that we really liked, but I just want to get that depth chart up there real quick, kind of show you, what they look like, sizing them up. A lot of guys back from last year, but I think that we've got an advantage. It's going to come down honestly to the offensive lines, in my opinion. Who blocks the opposite front better? I think for both teams. I think Ohio State has had the luxury of playing Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame has a really good front. I think USC found that out. Two good defensive tackles. Javonte Jean-Baptiste is actually playing really well for them. So I don't know if Penn State has seen a front like Ohio State, and I think they're going to be in for a rude awakening when they do. Nevada, these are games that can swing on a single play or two plays or whatever. Obviously, it's funny because Ohio State loses so infrequently to teams like Wisconsin and Purdue and Penn State that it's like if they've lost to any of those teams in the last 15 years, that's the game they always go back to. I don't know what it was, but I saw the Wisconsin 2010 game, showed today, and Purdue beat us in 18, which is literally it's been 5 years since they beat us on the Rondell Moore game, and these guys beat us in 16 on that blocked field goal, which turned the whole tide of everything. Do you think that these guys are in their heads when they come to play Ohio State, or is it a media thing that they go back to 7 years or 5 years or 13 years? Because we've dominated these teams, but they always seem to go back to that one game. Even this past week against Purdue, they kept showing the Tyler Trent game, and we lost, and they don't show us absolutely destroying Purdue the last 3 years. But what is that about, the media and bringing up the last time they beat Ohio State, which could have been, with Wisconsin, that was 2010. I mean, that was Jim Tressel coaching, Terrell Pryor, guys that haven't been in the program for 5, 6, 10 years. Your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, like you said, Ohio State loses so infrequently that I can almost remember every single loss and can probably talk to you about the quarterback sneak with Terrell Pryor against Penn State. We can go the blocked field goal where the guy literally grabbed the guard and pulled him out of the way so the guy could run through the hole to block the field goal. I mean, we can talk about them all that way, but the simple reality is Penn State is a different team playing in Happy Valley than they are playing on the road. And Penn State in Happy Valley on a whiteout at night is a handful. And Penn State playing in Columbus, it's been very, very difficult for them. And as an offensive lineman, when it's loud and it's difficult to hear the cadence, it's difficult to hear the audibles, it's difficult to hear what's going on, especially with a rookie quarterback like Aller. Maybe you're just a step slow. Maybe you're just a little bit hesitant in terms of getting off the ball, and that defense just pins back their ears, and they're a step faster than you are. And I just think that's going to be the story of the game. Some people don't think that home field advantage means much. I happen to, as a gambler, I think home field advantage means an awful lot, and I think in this series it's almost been determinative we've played up in Penn State with teams that were way better than them, and they played us, blow for blow. And when they've come to Columbus, in general, over the past 30 years, it's been bad news for them. And I just think this is going to be somewhere in between. I'm not predicting a blowout, but I think it's going to be a nice, convincing, suffocating win for Ohio State, and just another brick in the wall, another advance. We've talked about Ohio State being a team of destiny. I believe they're a team of destiny. And when you're a team of destiny, you win games like this one, and that's why I think they're going to win on Saturday.
Yeah, I think we've just had their number here. And again, I know that year over year that doesn't matter, whatever. But that 17 Penn State team was the best Penn State team that I've seen since the '94 team when they had Saquon, Trace McSorley, a laundry list of NFL guys across their defense and offense, skill guys that were fantastic. And Ohio State still found a way to beat them. With a good Ohio State team, not a great team, the 17 version. But that was like the greatest comeback, and they choked it out. And JT had maybe the greatest half in the history of Ohio State football for a quarterback. That being said, I'm going to go into the film room again. I can't get enough of watching the scheme from this week, and this is a play that I've watched a few times. It just looks like a basic set. We got G Scott. This is a double tight end look, but some of the nuanced stuff that I love. So you start G wing, you start Cade. He's aligned right next to Josh Simmons. You got Marv, you got Julian. Obviously, you don't have Mac, so you've got him in here. But this is when you get like kind of this muddied up front, it's always interesting when you do a short motion like with G here. And the thing that's interesting with him is you see who's with him, who carries him, and it's the nickel. So the nickel carries him out, and so all of a sudden. Again, I always talk about how much I hate the congested box where you have two tight ends and all these guys in the picture because you don't get a clear look and they can really muddy up the blitz looks. But here, when you motion G out to field three, which is generally like field three doesn't get the ball. Usually you're working to these two guys. All of a sudden you have a really clear picture and you're like, oh God, this could be a blitz zero. This could be what we used to call no deep, as in there's no deep safeties. If you're Kyle McCord, the first guy you check has this safety, and you're like, well, could this safety potentially cover Cade? Because if he covers Cade, that means that this is man across the board. And again, you always look at your safeties. Like when I used to coach offensive tackles, I say, look at the safeties, because the safeties tell you everything about the defense. So all of a sudden, he starts creeping over, and he's looking right at Cade, and you're like, oh boy, that means these guys potentially could all be coming. And when you're bringing 7, and you've only got 5 blockers and a tailback, that means Kyle McCord's got to throw the ball or he's going to get split in half. So you hit play, and sure as can be, it's blitz zero. Man up, man up, man up, man up. And, running back steps. This is fantastic protection by the offensive line. O-line picks up their 5, and you got to leave the deepest one. So if you're Josh Fryer has to decide, is this guy more dangerous than this guy? Josh decides that this guy is closer and more dangerous, so he takes him. This is the guy you have to beat with the throw. Hot, he's coming. Kyle sees him coming, and honestly, when you do this, you want the guy to be right in McCord's face so that he can see the pressure as opposed to blindside pressure. So Kyle knows that, hey, we got to get rid of this thing because if he holds it another second, he's going to get split. So he does, and he throws it up in the air. And when you do that, your coverage guys are all manned up. So there's a lot of space for this guy to have to try to cover Marvin. Throws it up to Marvin, get a touchdown out of it. Again, I love the aggression. I love that short motion. Again, with Ryan Day and what he's doing, a lot of this stuff is just great for Kyle's development. It's great for the offensive line. The communication was there because, again, that was exactly how you want to block a blitz zero. And again, when they blitz zero, as in all-out pressure, it's time to go score a touchdown. When you have guys like Marvin and Emeka and these guys that are burners, dude, I mean, that's ballsy when you're Purdue. But again, they're throwing dice. They're going for broke, basically. So they went broke there. But your thoughts on that play, Nevada?
Well, I think we've got a very good pass blocking offensive line. Again, not perfect, giving up some sacks, giving up some pressures, but it's in general a very good pass blocking line, and that's what we're most proficient at. And to your point, when we can spread them out, get our guys out there, Marvin Harrison with that much room by himself, one-on-one, I mean, he's going to win that 70-80% of the time. And I think for McCord to recognize that, some people are on him about throwing off his back foot, but he knew all he had to do was throw that ball to the outside as far as he could, and Marvin was going to run underneath it, and he did it, and it was perfect. That was a big play too. I think it was like 3rd and 6, or 3rd and 7, or something like that, and you miss that play, and then you line up for the field goal. Maybe you make the field goal, maybe you miss the field goal, but that game's just as big a route as it was against Purdue. Games always turn on a few plays of, a catch here, a missed field goal there, a big play, but that was certainly a big play. First drive of the game ended up with a touchdown. So yeah, just great all the way around.
Yeah, like I said, I thought in terms of the film, and I watched all these games. I watched the all-22. The film I've watched, like I just loved this game. Like I loved it. I think that they've really studied hard. They came out of the bye week, Maryland here. They did self-scout. Again, when you look at that self-scout sheet and it says, we've never pulled the ball running the read option as a quarterback. We do the fake all the time, but when you never actually pull it, then eventually teams don't respect it. When we pulled it, it was so open, it was crazy. This is another schematic thing that I love to feature Marvin Harrison. Again, this is one of my favorite formations in all of football. So Marvin, you put your best player, the best player in college football, down here by himself, and you go 3-by-1 into the boundary. So you put 2 receivers and a tight end into this little tiny short side of the field. And, in college, I mean, the hashes are so much wider than the NFL. So, I mean, you got a lot of congestion over here. They've got to shift guys over. You got to play the safety closer to this hash. So that means there is this entire field right here. And this poor corner is going to be out here versus Marvin basically one up. He's playing, 8 yards off. So what they do here, this is great. So they fake an orbit motion where it looks like Marvin's going to come back here. We've run a lot of the orbit motion stuff. We've handed it off. We've run play action off of it. Except he hits the brakes and we snap it and he just flares. And so all of a sudden, perfect. This is a perfect throw by Kyle McCord. Flares it. And, this guy's got a lot of space for Marvin, a guy that can scoot. And, Marvin makes a miss. And it's just easy money. I mean, that's an easy 13-yard gain. But again, like I love when you stress the defense by saying, okay, well, if you're going to shift your coverage where you need to shift them, I mean, when you got 3-by-1, you got to shift it over here. But then all of a sudden you got this guy over here by himself. I think that that's terrifying. And I don't know how many corners can hold up versus him one-on-one with all this room, So, but your thoughts on this play, Nevada? Because again, I think that the way that we're featuring Marvin is something that we just got to take advantage of going forward. Because let's face it, we've got a minimum of 6 games left with Marvin before he's off to the NFL. So you got to really start accentuating him going forward. But your thoughts on that and some of the other ways that we're working with Marvin right now?
Well, that play you see, I mean, you could run like kind of zone read action with Chip coming across in front of Kyle, and he could pull it out and roll out to the right, and Marvin could do that reverse orbit action and then run past the defensive back if the guy's coming up on him as well. So like there's all sorts of different options that you have off of that play, and like you said, it was so interesting that we went the first 5 weeks of the season and didn't see any of this type of stuff. And then in game 6 against Purdue, it's like it was all there. We're just like, oh my God, it was almost like too much. It was like a starving man. Like what you read those books about like Antarctica or something like that, where they go on those, things and they don't eat for like 29 days. And then they're coming there and then all of a sudden they start gorging themselves with food when they get to the thing. That's what I kind of felt like. I felt like Ryan Day was just like throwing stuff. And I was stuffing pastries in my mouth and eclairs and stuff. And I was like hog heaven watching this because it was just so much. It was almost too much. And on this podcast we can only break down a couple of plays, but it was definitely a cornucopia of great offensive plays. And kudos to Ryan Day for rolling them out and giving Penn State something to think about.
Well, I mean, that's the thing I love about it is you've got all of these really good concepts that are now on film. Now Manny Diaz, who was talking trash last week, has to get ready for all this. And it's a lot of stuff that, frankly, we haven't done or we haven't seen. And again, I'm going to go right to the next play on the highlight. Here he is, 33, our guy. He's in here. And again, this is hard to defend. I mean, what's been our bugaboo? Short yardage. It's been terrible. So, here, in terms of personnel, you've got Cade, G, and then you bring in X. So you got X as the backside tight end. I don't know if he signed up for that, but he officially has played, I think, every position on the team. But he hangs in there versus the backside guy, just kind of gets in the way. And again, I think that that's better than reading it, because if you're not going to read it, you got to put somebody on this guy. So, we turn this into the Q lead. Take a step, let your tailback get in front of you, and this is all collapse. But I mean, you got a lead blocker here, really for nobody. Julian's up there, and I mean, it's just he doesn't get touched. I mean, there's no we got it by this much, or they need a measurement. I mean, everyone knows that we're going with it. And again, I think that keeping Devon Brown engaged is so huge, because again, we've seen these games, man, those Michigan games where all of a sudden you need your backup quarterback. JT got hurt in the Michigan game. They had to bring in Haskins. They had to bring in Cardell to finish out the 1 year. I mean, it just happens. And I mean, I think that keeping the backup quarterback engaged with some sort of a package is brilliant by Ryan, Dave, because you just don't know when you're going to need that guy. And if he's just mothballed until, something unfortunate happens to Kyle McCord, then it's hard, because he could go, a month without playing a meaningful snap that's not a garbage time handoff. But your thoughts on that, Nevada? Because again, I love seeing Devon Brown involved, just because I think that it's important to keep that guy in the game and know, hey, we get down here, hey, we could be going to the Devon Brown package, and you're in the game and you're playing for real. This isn't just handed off to Pryor at the very end of the game when there's 30 seconds left. But your thoughts on Devon Brown's package, because I love it.
Well, first of all, there's a segment of people that just want to keep holding on to this thing with like, Devon Brown's not very athletic, he doesn't run very well, and guys, just stop. It's a bad take. Devon Brown, there's a reason why they keep giving him these quarterback runs. Even Ryan Day talks about how good he is in this action, how athletic he is. Yeah, the one thing that he got like an F- on was that fumble. You can't, that is something that absolutely cannot happen. But in terms of the way that he runs, the way that he can see the zone read action, and the fact that he's actually a capable quarterback, so he can legitimately throw out of it as well. Yeah, I love it, and I just think it adds so much to the OSU offense. It gives so many things for the defense to think about. And again, it's not going wildcat where you're putting a guy back there and he's going to run, because you don't know what Devon's going to do. This is a legitimate quarterback who threw a 50-yard touchdown pass the week before. So you're not going to just be able to back off the guys, because he'll gun it in there. And no, I think it gives. I think it's engagement. You just saw the energy that he brought. And in these days with the quarterbacks, the way quarterbacks are, you better have a backup that's capable and ready to go. And he certainly fits that bill. Now, I have a question for you, though. A question for you. This is a blast from the past. When JT Barrett got Jeff Galooly there, like up in Michigan, where the guy hit him on the knee before the game, do you think that was intentional, or do you think that was accidental? I want your honest opinion. Do you think it was intentional or accidental?
I mean, I think it had to be accidental. Again, I'm not trying to be some Michigan apologist, but I just feel like if someone actually did that, and because you're not doing that in like a vacuum or at some practice, you're doing it at the big house where there's 60,000 4K cameras set up and there's people everywhere. I mean, if you're really going to go do the lead pipe on or the lead camera on JT Barrett's knee, I can't imagine you actually doing that, because everyone's going to see you. There's going to be video of it. Like the dude that did Nancy Kerrigan, that was at a practice rink, and there's no video of the guy whacking her knee, and there's just her crying and yelling why and whatever. But I don't think it was intentional. Now, again, could it have been malicious? Sure. Could it have been avoided? Maybe. I don't know, but I can't imagine someone intentionally doing that, because for one, you're going to get arrested. I mean, it's an assault if you actually really did hit the guy.
Okay, second question. While I got you that, do you think Urban Meyer was upset about it? Let me ask you that.
Oh, he's upset about everything. I mean, he's always upset. So of course, and again, he's like Woody. Like Woody Hayes was the guy that didn't want the food served from the Michigan hotels and the away team hotels. He thought they'd be poisoned. And again, honestly, having been a player, I was always anxious about the food we got served. Because you're in Michigan State or at Michigan, and all the people there are big Michigan fans and they're cooking your food and serving your food. So again, like maybe I'm crazy and I probably am crazy, but when you know that everyone in the room that's serving your food absolutely hates you and is rooting against you, but for that moment in time, they're wearing like Ohio State hats for the 35 minutes that they're feeding you your meal. I was always a little wigged out about it. So I try to wolf the food down and just, say a prayer that it wasn't bugged or poisoned or I wouldn't get food poisoning or whatever. But I don't know. Like,
Okay, last question for you. Did you really check in? Was your name when you checked in? Was it Rudy Longmire? Was that really the fake name that you used when you checked into Michigan hotels?
It was Burke. It was Burke. Burke Carton. It's the
Burke
greatest,
Carton,
the greatest name ever, dude. Burke Carton is in room 112 where the players dwell. But no, they actually did all the check-ins for us. But it was funny. We'll get into that some other time. Some of the roommates, because some of my roommates were hilarious. Like Santonio Holmes was the funniest roommate ever because he would put the thermostat on like 90 degrees, and literally like I'd be laying in a pool of sweat when I was like, and I'd be like, dude, like, can we like keep it at like 65 like human beings? And he's like from Florida, so it's like it'd be like 90 degrees on the thermostat, and I'd be ready to die and kill him. But I digress into that. But I'm gonna get one more play in here as we're burning through this time. This is the guy, Carnell Tate and Brandon Innis had more plays that were big time plays. And I said this when I was on with Bank a little bit ago. I think they made more plays in this game than I've seen Julian Fleming make in his career. And I might be wrong, but he just goes right down the seam. Again, great pass protection from the O-line. Nice easy wall right here. Carson hangs in there, but it's weird because he goes like Mike Allstott mode right here and goes double arm over. And, I thought if he would have caught it and hit the gas, I mean, he could split it and go to the crib. But I think he was so scared that he didn't want to fumble and get banished to the shadow realm next to Devon Brown that he did the double arm over. But your thoughts on Tate and Inis? Do they need to play more? Again, I think that, I get Brian Hartline wants to play his three best guys all the time, and it makes sense. But, I watch NFL football like you do, and I watch Devontae Adams come out and get a little glass of water, in between 3 or 4 plays, because receivers have to run a lot. They got to run a go route, 40-yard sprint as fast as they can. Like, you do that a couple times in a row, you're going to be gassed, and you can bring another guy in to run a route for a running play or whatever. But your thoughts on Ennis and Tate? Do they need to play more? And at the expense of, I'd assume, Julian Fleming, maybe Emeka, because Emeka is probably not going to be 100% this week. But your thoughts on those two?
Well, first of all, compliments the O-line on that play. Great blocking. Gave McCord a great pocket. Compliments to Kyle McCord. When you saw him throw it, as soon as you saw him go back and throw it, you knew it was a completion. I mean, he had perfect balance. He was gunning that thing. There was no wasted motion. I mean, that was absolutely beautifully thrown. For Carnell, you could tell he was bobbling it a little bit. That's why he slowed down. He didn't want to. He was kind of like the ball was shuffling in his hands, and that's why he slowed down and did the Mike Allstott fullback dive, not get stripped thing. But yeah, and again, I don't want to turn this into a bag on player thing, and I know we're not doing that. Love Julian Fleming, love what he can bring. I think he's a force. G. Scott, those guys. Could we take some of the snaps away from him and give those to Carnell and Innis? And I'm waiting for the evolution of the OSU offense where we start going 4 wide, where we start going 5 wide. I mean, I just want to see teams defend it. I mean, if you've got an abundance of wide receiver talent, you just had 2 guys that basically in a handful of reps both had 50-yard plays in a Big Ten game, and those 2 guys never play. I mean, I want to see teams defend Marvin, Emeka, Julian, Carnell, Brandon when we go out there, or any 4 of those 5 with Trey as the offset back. I want to see how teams defend that, and I think we're going to see that. I Dave's got to realize that. Like, whenever we have these conversations about Ryan Day, I always say it, but it needs to be said. Ryan Day is a brilliant guy. He's not stupid. He sees the tape. He's well compensated. He's got great advisors. So this stuff is not lost on him. He's choosing to go different directions for certain reasons. But I think it's got to become evident that you've got a quarterback that can sling it. You've got an offensive line that's very proficient at pass blocking, and you've got an abundance of wide receiver talents. So let's maybe cut back on 10 or 15 of the reps for that extra tight end. Let's split out, another wide receiver out there, and let's see what happens. That you did that in 2006 against Michigan. We've talked about this ad nauseum, going 4 and 5 wide, not the whole game, but a lot of the game. And you guys still rushed for 188 yards. Now, a lot of that wasn't out of those formations. A lot of it was at double tight end. But, going 4 and 5 wide does not mean stop running the ball. It just means give the other side a different look and a different stressor for something that they have to think about when they're running their guys out there. And I think Ohio State could see that well. And after the evolution of the offense against Purdue, I have no doubt that we'll see that sometime in the future, maybe as early as this week.
You go 4 wide. I mean, you got to go, if you're going to match personnel, you're going to be going nickel or dime. And I'm telling you, make that third and fourth corner have to cover Tate Inis. I mean, make them, guys that aren't used to playing a lot, or they rotate in maybe a little bit as a nickel or whatever. Now all of a sudden they're in the game big time and they're playing 2 guys that are first round picks. I mean, you could literally go 4 wide and have 4 first round picks out there. So that's just my opinion. Again, I love watching what those guys do. Any final thoughts? It's Monday of Penn State week. There's going to be a ton of content on BuckeyesScoop.com. But your thoughts on this week going forward?
Yeah, I had a great nugget today on some of the stars of the scout teams. Are you interested in hearing some of the younger guys that are kind of balling out? Go to BuckeyesScoop.com. Certainly got some great information on that. Early in the week, I'm very confident in a lot of review on Penn State. I just, like I said, I see a low scoring affair, but Ohio State kind of suffocating them. I think Drew Aller's a really good quarterback. So anything that I say about Drew Aller is not saying this guy sucks, because he definitely does not suck. He's a good quarterback. He's a good kid. I saw him at the Elite 11. I seen him play. I mean, he's very good, but he's inexperienced. And inexperienced quarterbacks going into a difficult environment like this. I mean, I'd be saying the same thing about Cal McCord. If this was a whiteout up in Penn State, I'd be like, that's going to be tough. It's a tough environment to play in. I think it's going to be a very tough environment, and I think the OSU fans are going to bring it. OSU fans, the guys that are listening out there, there's 2 things that you can do that can actually influence and help the team win. 1 is give money to NIL, because that can help, and 2 is make noise at the stadium. So if you're either giving money or make noise, but that's a way that you can actually contribute and participate in the victory. Is make noise, get the people around you to make noise, be on your feet, be loud, be energetic, and make it really difficult for Penn State on Saturday, and have a great time. And I think it's going to be a big party on Saturday night in Columbus, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I can't wait as well. Very well said. That being said, as always, we appreciate you guys being a part of our show. If you enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. You'll get an alert every time we go live on the phone, so we appreciate all you guys, all of our regulars in here. Again, BuckeyesScoop.com, it needs to be your new home. You see our little webpage on there. Our board is absolutely crazy, bonkers, wild right now. We have a ton of content on there, so if you guys are ready for the biggest home game of the year, join BuckeyesScoop.com. Appreciate all of our new members. A lot of new traffic coming in, so we really appreciate all of our newbies, and of course our old school Buckeye Scoop subscribers. Thank you all. That being said, if you enjoyed this, leave us a like, and also give us a comment. I want to hear who needs to step up for Ohio State this week, and who do you want to see play more? For me, it's Brandon Inis, man. I can't believe it. His first catch was a bomb touchdown. Fantastic kid. Fantastic play. I think he's terrorizing to go against, and I want to see more of him. Also, if you would, shout out where you guys are watching from. What are your plans for the game? Put that in the comments as well. I always love reading where you guys are at. As always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. We got a ton of content on BuckeyesScoop.com, so jump on there tonight like I'm about to for this Monday night game. So have a good night. Go Bucks.